tough transition into some real sports this morning, but we do have a jam-packed show for you guys. We're going to get to it after a quick word from FanDuel. You guys have heard us talk about it a lot. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook, and they have something a little different for you guys right now. Starting today through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com/UCSS to download America's #1 sportsbook. Guys, we've talked about the Browns' schedule numerous times. This is the last Friday before we are in true game day mode. With how backloaded we know the Browns' schedule is, can they afford to get off to a slow start this season, or do they have to hit the ground running week 1 in order to handle the ups and downs of a season and especially the end of the season where they play a gauntlet, 6 really tough teams in the final 8 weeks of the year?
Guys, I'm not, listen, the season's not over if you lose the first game. I don't want to get carried away. But there's no doubt, thank you, Anthony, there's no doubt that the Browns have to get overall the first quarter of the season off to a good start.
Would you say that's their easiest quarter, Bull?
Yeah, I mean,
I think
I go through 5 weeks, which is a little more than a quarter. But,
right.
I mean, look at that schedule. I mean, that's the easiest stretch of their schedule. I don't think there's any doubt about it. Listen, it's the NFL. Nothing's easy. You are playing 3 road games. But the Commanders have a rookie quarterback. The Jaguars have been kind of shaky outside of the second half of the 22 season. The Raiders are going with, I guess, Gardner Minshew at quarterback. I know he played well against us last year. The Giants stink, and that game's at home. The Cowboys are really the only good team in the first 5 weeks.
When you say the Jags are still a bit of a mystery,
yeah,
a playoff team 2 years ago, and last year they stubbed their toe late or they were going back.
Yeah, 2 years ago they made a big run at the end of the year. Last year they started off well and then kind of fell apart at the end.
They did, yeah.
So, but they're not a great team. The schedule is manageable. They've got to be, to me, with the toughness of this division, the toughness of this conference, and the toughness of their schedule after that, they've got to be at least 3-2 to start the season, I think.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what your target was.
Yeah, I mean, 4-1 would be nice.
I think 4-1, they win the quarter. Because here's the way I break it up: the first 5, and then 6 through 9 is the second quarter for me.
Yeah.
10 through 13, and then 14 through 17.
Yeah.
Because there's 17, not 16 games.
Yeah.
That's a bear.
Yeah.
That's a bear.
Yep.
So you have to make hay where hay is able to be made.
Yeah.
And they can do it in that first half. I know it's a tall task, but 4-1 is a win. 3-2 to me is a push. Anything less, 2 and 3,
it's a disaster.
Your season's off the rails.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to see where the wins are going to come from.
Yeah, they can't be under 500 after those 5
Absolutely
games.
not. G?
I've evolved on this. I don't think that you can look at a schedule and just say that team's good, that team's bad,
That's
that
fair.
team's good.
Yeah, it's going to change year to year from what you expect.
Year to year.
But based on what we know, obviously what we know now.
You would assume that, the Commanders won't be as good as some of these other teams, but, I've watched games where, rookies play well. I've watched games where Mac Jones played well in one of those games.
To your point, if Jaden Daniels is the next great quarterback, they'll be a lot better.
They will be.
Yeah.
C.J. Stroud.
And he's got 4 games to figure it out.
That's true.
We talk about the Texans all the time. Last year, people probably was chalking the Texans up as wins.
That's true.
So
we did.
Yeah, we found out otherwise that, hey, those guys can really play. So would you like to get off to a great start? Yeah, you would. You would like to see you get that confidence and momentum and put together long stretches. And, I like to see teams, not lose back-to-back games, right? If you lose a game, can you come back and put 2 together, 2 or 3 wins in a row? That's how you start to stack some money in the bank. I would love for them to come out and do what they need to do against the Cowboys, but the Cowboys are a good team. I think the Jaguars are a good team. They started off 9-4 last year, and they look like they have figured it out 2 years in a row. So, for me, I think we're at a point now with the Cleveland Browns where if you want to be considered one of those good teams, and I think a lot of people do consider the Browns have a really good roster and a good team, then every single week you're supposed to go out and expect that you're going to win or be competitive. And that's what playoff teams do, and teams with good rosters do. So, I wouldn't be surprised if they started off very, good. But I don't think if they go 3-2 or something, that denotes that the season's off the rails.
No, but wouldn't you think that 2-3 is you can't afford a 2-3?
I wouldn't like a 2-3.
There are some folks that say it will take 12 wins to win this division. And
to win the division, sure. To make the playoffs, probably 10.
No, but I'm looking more at, last year, the goal has always been to make the playoffs, but in reality, that gets you a road game, and in the NFL, that usually gets you a loss. That's what happened to us last year.
Right.
I'm looking at this season as I'm told this is a Super Bowl opportunity. I'm
Right.
told by a lot of people in the know that the roster's there. It's all dependent upon the quarterback. If that's the case, you can't put yourself in a 3-loss hole in the first quarter of the season. Now you lose 3 games the rest of the season, and you're likely not winning the division, and you're fighting for a playoff spot.
Yeah, I mean, if they start 2-3, they got almost no chance of winning the division.
It's
The
tough.
playoffs is not. But even I don't think they're going to start 2-3. But if they do, well, just to make the playoffs, you probably have to go 8-4 the rest of the way, which certainly will be hard with this.
And that
schedule,
gets you to
so.
10 wins, and I don't
Right.
know that gets you in.
Yeah, probably,
It
but not a
usually
guarantee.
does, but,
not a
the
guarantee.
division this year is just going to be so tight with
Yeah.
Cincinnati back to form, and Baltimore made some big improvements in the offseason, and Lamar has another quality season under his belt. I'm looking at this. I think we all agree on this. This is the toughest division in the entire NFL. So don't make things difficult for yourself. I always used to equate it to school and grade point average. And if you put yourself in a hole in that first 9 weeks, that first quarter, if you will, you're really making it difficult on yourself, because it's like a batting average. It's really, really hard to bring it up, but it's easy to watch it plummet. And so just the way you start has so much to do with success in the NFL. I remember, and I don't know the exact numbers, but the stats that ESPN metrics used to push about teams that start the season 2-3 make the playoffs 19% of the time. And a lot of that, I used to kind of scoff at that, and I'd say, well, 5 games is a decent enough sample size. They're missing the playoffs not necessarily because they started 2-3, but because they're a lousy team.
Right, sure.
So this may be one of those cases where they're not a lousy team, and that 2-3 puts them at such a disadvantage that you're running uphill. And I think what we've seen in the past with the Browns, because they've had to finish so hot late in seasons, that they don't have playoff success because they've actually been playing playoff-type football for 4 or 5 weeks.
I can give you a
Coast
couple,
into the
I can
playoffs.
give you a couple examples. A couple years ago, when Ben Roethlisberger was playing, I think the Steelers was 13-1 or something.
They're
And
the last undefeated team
Yeah.
in the league that
they was
year.
the last
They were the most
undefeated-
fraudulent 13-1 team in the history of football.
And we said that all year. We kept saying they're not.
And
that
they got
good.
into the playoffs. They was not playing well, and they got smoked. They lost to the Browns the last game of the season. They got trounced low-key at home during the playoffs. And so, and I've even watched teams, really good teams like the San Francisco 49ers. They lost 3 games in a row. They lose to the Browns, they lost to the Bengals, they lost to the Vikings, and people are looking around like, oh, well, what's going on with the 49ers? I think it's such a long season. There's seasons within the season. Like the season, we start right now. It's August, right? September. We talk about September's the first game. Man, they play till January. Like there's a bunch of games.
You're lucky till February.
Until February. So
That's half a year away.
it's a long season. Injuries factor into that. Somebody's main quarterback's going to get hurt.
Always happens.
It always happens. So my thing for me, here's what I wish more than anything. If you say, would you take a fast start or relatively great health? Give me the great health. Because if I got great health, I know I could be in these games and at the end. I know I can ramp up to getting to a certain point. But if you got your quarterback out, your tackles, Myles Garrett is out, Chubb is out, no receivers, the fast start really relatively don't mean that much because you don't have a chance to really make your impact on the playoffs like they did last year. Browns made the playoffs, but by the time they were there, they were banged up. So if you give me 17 games, I'll take that over for a super duper fast start.
The
Yeah,
Eagles last year, by the way, another example of that, G.
What's that?
The Eagles last year were another example of super
Started
hot,
white hot
9-1, I believe they were.
and then couldn't figure out how to tackle.
Just-
They fell apart as much as any team I can remember in recent memory.
Those are extreme examples. I mean, the Chiefs weren't playing great football.
No, they weren't.
And they got it together for the playoffs. I think the Browns, I don't even know if it was, I mean, they were winning even with the injuries. I mean, most of the Browns' key injuries happened earlier in the season.
Yeah.
But
it
yes,
was amazing. When they had the most adversity, they played their best football.
Right. Yeah. So obviously health is important. The Browns on offense especially were very unlucky when it comes to injuries. And, there's really very little you can control in that vein. But, certainly health is most important. But, G, you make a great point. Based on what we know now, the Commanders are not that good. The Raiders are not that good. The Giants are not that good. But every year, there's teams we expect to be good that are not. There's teams we don't expect to be good that are.
Every year.
You never know. Yeah. So playing the schedule game is tricky.
I did an exercise with some buddies about a week ago. If you could put the schedule back up. Sorry, Steve, that I got to it that late. But I asked them to rank the games in order of toughness. And we all agreed the first game is the toughest. The next game is easier. The next game is easier yet. The next game is easier yet. And the Commanders could be the easiest of all. And that's it. That's an interesting way to start the season, because when you turn the page from that, you are smacked right in the face with playoff team after playoff team after playoff team.
I personally think, I agree with you through week 4. I actually think
that's the one we discussed. The Giants
I think
and
the
Commanders
are better than the Giants, and I think they're better than the Raiders too.
I don't.
As long as
do you really?
Yeah, I think Jaden Daniels is pretty good, and
The Raiders to me,
I like Washington.
The Raiders to me, the reason is not really it's on the road. They got Max Crosby.
Yeah.
They got a good defense. They got some guys like Devontae Adams, and Gardner Minshew just plays well against the Browns. And the Raiders overall have traditionally played well against the Browns too.
Devontae Adams does not want to be there. I wonder how much of a role that plays.
I don't
That'll
blame
be
him at
interesting.
all.
Well, that's a good lead up to our next topic, guys. I got to get a quick word in from eBay, then I'll set it